Yeah. So
Yeah,
what's happening at the moment? You're in quarantine, which is, I guess,
yeah.
a challenge.
I am on day 7. It's been a week now, but it's actually hasn't been as bad as everyone's been kind of making it out to be, to be honest.
Yeah. What were you worried about?
Um, I mean, obviously not being able to go out, no fresh air. Unfortunately, didn't get a room with a balcony.
Yikes.
I was on the wrong side of the hotel, but yeah, I think that was kind of the hard part. Obviously, um, just 2 weeks in a room is doesn't sound great.
No, no.
But
Are you
no,
reading or watching Netflix, or what are you doing to keep yourself entertained?
yeah, but I've kind of a little bit of Netflix. I actually haven't done a whole lot. I've only watched a couple of episodes, to be honest, altogether. Um,
So you're staying up late and watching Wimbledon?
no, I've been actually waking up pretty early because of jet lag. So I've been watching it when, like, in the middle of the night when I'm up. So it's been good.
Yeah, nice. So I guess the first and most obvious question is, you're obviously off for quite some period of time. You had the hip injury, if I'm not mistaken, and then you eventually found a way to get back to fitness to a point where you're able to compete. But you had a relatively short tour. Was that always the plan?
Yeah, yeah, that was the plan the whole time. So when obviously my hip took me out for like a year, so I basically left as soon as I was gonna kind of stay in one piece to play. So I only played points really like a week before I left. So I was very underdone, but it was just the goal was to just get me in shape enough to just go. So
Yeah.
obviously wasn't training the whole as much as I wanted to be, but that was kind of our progression. And left as soon as I could. And then the first couple of weeks, because I was so underdone, barely played. It was tough, kind of trying to, play at that level, and it was tough. Not like I kept comparing myself how I was playing a year and a half ago,
Yeah, sure.
and obviously it wasn't even close to it. So it was pretty tough in the first 3 weeks to get that comparing side of things out of my head.
Yeah, and so that obviously would be a frustration. I imagine you're out on court, you're thinking,
Yeah.
myself 18 months ago, I can make that ball, I can hit that shot. Was
Yeah.
it as the tour progressed? You said it started to be tough initially. As your tour progressed, though, did you get to play with like a sense of freedom of no expectations? I'm just here for a short few weeks, just see how it goes.
Yeah, like the last 2 weeks were a lot better. By Wimby, I was feeling really confident with my game and everything. Started feeling quite comfortable on the court again. But then obviously I was coming back after Wimby, but it kind of ended up working out well because my hip got quite sore after that last match. So I haven't been able to do a whole lot after. Obviously, I'm in quarantine, but I'm going back to rehab at the moment. So hopefully, my hip isn't too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to leave on time for my
Right. So
next.
it's now about building a foundation, is it? Because you said you've got sore.
Yeah,
You played a really long match after two very successful and very, well, I guess, relatively brief qualifying matches, and then coming into the third match was long three-setter. Is it now about building up a foundation so that you can leave again at some point and
yeah,
stay out of
exactly, and that's why we were planning on the shorter trip since I haven't been able to do much. It's kind of just coming back and being able to train and get my body right again, strong enough, and then go again for a longer period of time. Otherwise, if I kept going, I don't know how much my hip could take and might make my trip shorter and make it worse. So
Yeah. And
a lot of the physios were saying that they didn't think I would make it to French Open. So it was amazing like I could make French.
So were you advised to maybe give it a miss, but you just improved at such a rapid rate that by the time
Yeah,
the decision came,
like no one
let's just go
thought it
for
would improve that quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Because your first tournament being the French, did you play on clay after that, or was you pretty quick?
I played
Around the clay
more tournaments. No, I played 2 more tournaments on clay, and
how's that hit?
It's actually not terrible because it's quite soft, but
Not terrible.
there was this tournament when I played in bowl and it rained like a lot the night before, and so when I played, the clay was super soft and it got delayed. My match got delayed a few hours because it was too soft. But when I did play, almost every time you would run out wide or run for a droppy, I'd like almost fall over, and I fell over like twice. So that wasn't great for it. But I mean, the clay in general was obviously longer matches and a bit more of a grind, but the soft clay was pretty good for it.
Yeah. Is it something you have to check yourself with mentally? Because obviously you're a competitor, so your instinct is to win and to do whatever it takes to win. But then obviously you've got this physical limitation as well. So how have you found managing, I suppose, that balance?
Yeah, I mean, lucky enough, the first couple of, like, basically the whole trip, I was pretty good. And even, like, I was comfortable enough with my hip and trusting it that it would hold up. So it doesn't really bother me too much. If I left even earlier, then I wouldn't be trusting and I'd be scared the whole time. But at my last match at Wimby, I started feeling it go a little bit. But I obviously didn't know. Like, it didn't bother me too much that it changed anything I did on the court. But it's there, but I'm like, I'll just deal with it after. It's not like I did something crazy and it suddenly, like, I fell or hear something go. So I'm pretty. It's fine. I'm trusting it pretty well. Yeah.
Cool. This, you said you're out for a year, so I'm guessing you've obviously are pretty young in terms of like your career. What have you learnt in that year? Because this must have been a big challenge for you and a new experience. But you must have learned at least a little bit about your resilience and how you deal with these sort of things. Have you found that, you've been able to grow as a competitor or an individual or just simply as a person by going through this experience?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I'm not that young now, and the tennis players kind of, like, I feel young in life, but then like tennis players' career is, I don't know, 30 and, a few years after that. So in that way, I don't feel that young. But I think having this year, I quite enjoyed it, to be honest, because I've been traveling overseas every year since I was 12. So it was kind of getting the better of me. Like 2019, obviously we travel so much. It's like 8 months of the year. So it was kind of getting to me and wasn't enjoying it as much. Felt a bit more like I don't know, not a chore, but it was just, you weren't getting excited to leave. Like, I mean, it's tough for all the players. That's just honest. But it was just bringing me down a little bit. So when COVID hit and I ended up getting injured like 3 weeks before I was meant to go to US. So I was so upset because my hip ended up turning out to be really bad. And
was that for the hard court swing you were going to be going over there? Is that the timeline?
Yeah. So I've been lucky with injury so far in my career. Like, haven't had anything over a couple of months. So for me, it was very different because I've never gone through it. But I was also, like, big thing for me is always trying to find something to be grateful for. So for me, I was grateful to be able to see my family for actual year, which I've never done. And I had a niece that was born, so got to spend a lot of time with her and just living kind of like a normal life, having a routine, going to tennis every day still. But yeah, it was quite nice just to not be traveling week in, week out. But yeah, after the year, it really helped me reset and get excited to go back on tour.
Did you miss it?
Yeah, I definitely missed it. Like especially after my trip now, I really enjoyed being back there and competing each week and traveling again. So I think the year helped me a lot.
Yeah, and when you have come back to the tour, you've come back to a tour which is substantially different with its restrictions as to what you can and can't do compared to the tour that you left prior to your injury and COVID. So how have you gone?
Yeah.
How did you go with the COVID restrictions, living in the bubble, all that sort of stuff? Take us through what that's like.
Yeah, so obviously I had no idea what to expect, apart from what players have told me already. But when I headed over to Paris first, since Australia was a green zone, heading over into, like, at the airport, I was so cautious of everything, like literally hand sanitizing anything possible. And because, like, for us Aussies, thinking going to Europe, having thousands and thousands of cases a day, it's like, that's crazy. That's like almost impossible. We just walked straight through, like didn't need to go straight into the bubble because the testing didn't start for a day. So I went straight from the airport, dropped our bags off, and then just walked to the Eiffel Tower, which was like a 5-minute walk away. So it felt pretty surreal. I was like, this doesn't feel right that I'm just roaming free. But yeah, I was pretty, I guess, lucky in a way because most of my tournaments weren't really in a bubble. Like, they were in a bubble, but not really. So I was kind of roaming free and going, you could go to restaurants and all that. But you would get tested obviously every couple of days. And if you're cautious and, you know, wear a mask, like.
So the COVID restrictions of it all, at least in your experience, it didn't quite take the fun out of it. I'm sure there was some things you'd like to do that you couldn't, but.
Yeah, of course, especially when I'm a massive foodie. And I only ate out at restaurants probably 3 times the whole trip. But I actually didn't mind it. You know, it kind of felt like I was in juniors again. All the players were hanging out a lot more than we used to. So that was quite nice. I played so many cards. I haven't played that many cards in a long time.
Monopoly deal?
No Monopoly deal. There were some people that did, but I didn't have it. So overall, it was a good experience, and obviously the UK was super strict. So that kind of, I mean, it had to be, but yeah, UK was way stricter than any other tournaments I've been at.
Yeah.
It was annoying though. Every time you go to another country, you have to get a PCR test before, and then doing so much random paperwork that you have to go into each week. That part was annoying.
Yeah, I can imagine. And when you were returning home after finding some form, couple of good wins, were you excited to be coming back and then building a foundation, or were you sort of thinking maybe you could have stretched it out a bit subject to your hip?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, oh, maybe I could be okay, but then at the same time, I was like, if I stayed, it'd be till the end of the year, and I don't know how long, if I could last that whole time. And especially after that last match, I was like, thank goodness I'm going home, because I don't know, I couldn't have played the week after for sure. And then I would have had to find somewhere to train, and it's kind of tough in overseas because we don't have a base over there.
Yeah.
So it's quite tough to find somewhere. And obviously it's expensive. So I'm pretty happy. I'm really happy with the decision to come back and try to build a base again.
That's great. And your goals for the remainder of the season, is it just to get back out there and just give it a go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously top 100 is always the goal, the next goal. But yeah, kind of just after this trip, it took me a couple of weeks to kind of get back into it, and hopefully the next trip won't be like that now. But just to stay healthy and just keep working on things after that I learned from this trip and keep working. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Great bit of insight. And with having now more time away from the tour, both before this trip and now the fact you're back here. What are you doing outside of tennis to keep yourself, I guess, occupied? I know you've got an interest in a fashion label of sorts. I imagine that takes up a fair bit of your time.
Yeah, I think having Platform 6, this business that I started with my best friend, that's kept me busy, especially in quarantine too. Like I love having something else apart from tennis just to get your mind off, because tennis, it's already, you think about it a lot. So it's nice to switch off and think about something else. And yeah, in quarantine, I've had to go through all my taxes and also just getting new products for a platform and organizing a photo shoot at the moment. So that's kind of kept me busy, and it'll keep me busy for the next couple of days, which is good. So that's kind of killed a lot of time for me.
Fantastic. Well, I just wanted to say thanks for taking the time. I know that
No worries.
you're not necessarily flat chat, at least.
I've got time.
Yeah, but I appreciate you taking the time and just giving us some insight as to how you're tracking and all that. And
Thank you.
yeah, good luck for the next week and
Thanks
the rest
for
of
the
the
chat.
season.